This is an AVNation special. My name is Tim Allward. I am your host. With me today is Mr. Casey Hall, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Extron Electronics. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I am well. It looks very nice, very beautiful in Anaheim out your window there, if people are watching on the video.
Yeah, I try and face the right direction here.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. I have a very good friend who works at UCLA, and he is constantly giving me a hard time about, the four seasons that are in St. Louis. He only has one, which is always 70 degrees.
We'll handle that. We'll rough it out here.
Yeah, that's the thing is somebody has to do it. Somebody has to live there, and you guys can handle that. So a couple of things real quick. If somebody's not familiar with Extron, they've been around for a long time. I grew up with Extron in the world of AV. Honestly, in the beginnings of my AV career, as the component company, right? You guys made switchers, you made scalers, and everything that other companies did not do. Short story, but it's kind of cool. I was out there a few years ago when I was a tech manager, got to sit down with Andrew Edwards, and very interesting man. Explained how he got started in the business and the fact that they were trying to take computer images and put them on a projector screen, and he developed his first interface. So that's kind of where you guys came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of the manufacture of the glue products is always the way that we've looked at ourselves. Switchers, routers, signal distribution products, control products. That's kind of core to Extron these days, and but yeah, none of the sources, none of the displays, all the stuff in between.
Yeah, exactly. And you're continuing that over the last few years, and digital. We've all lived through this, right? I mean, it's everything from the first, technically the first DVI cable back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and you guys have come along over the last few years, and you've done HDMI switchers, you've done DVI switchers, you've done a display port. And you've also started developing what some other companies have done as well, which is the digital over twisted pair, right? And I don't want to get into a conversation about which cat, because we can divert into a very deep hole there.
Yeah, sure.
But just to give people an update, what exactly are you guys doing in the world of digital right here, right now?
Okay. Well, probably the biggest thing that's happened here at Extron on digital video is the introduction of our XTP II product line. That was announced last month, and XTP II is the next generation of our line of switchers and routers that are modular card cage switchers that handle digital video, audio, bidirectional control, Ethernet, really heart of the system products. And when you look at XTP II, what's super exciting about it is that it's a product with a 50 gig backplane, and that's huge. That's way beyond anything else that's on the market. I mean, it's really a monumental leap forward. And 50 gig, you're talking about an investment in infrastructure that's really gonna carry you into 4K. Any flavor of 4K, however we want to talk about that, which I think is something that we chatted about ahead of time, and I think something we'll maybe touch on here today. But kind of every flavor you're talking about there, and even into 8K and beyond.
Okay, so now I'm they're a really good friend of mine, Mark Coxon, wrote a nice piece on Rave about that very topic.
Yeah,
your backplane. And Mark comes from the world of IT, so his confusion was valid, I guess is the best way to put it. Explain to folks, if they do come from the world of IT, what you talk about and what you're talking about when you're talking about a 50 gig backplane.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I appreciate that. No, Mark did write a very good piece, and then came back. We had a conversation, then came back and added some information to it. Mark, as you mentioned, his background is as an IT professional, kind of comes from that world. And when you talk about backplane there in terms of an Ethernet switch, you're generally talking about bandwidth spread across the entire switch and utilized as you open and close ports. And so it allows for flexibility there. In the world of AV, you're really talking input to output, and you've got continuous data throughput. So when we say 50 gig across the backplane, we're talking about for every input to output, every route through the switcher, continuous 50 gig across the backplane, utilized and available for every route combination fully loaded on the switcher.
So it's not back to the IT part. 50 gig backplane means that's it, right? That is the total amount that switch can handle, and in your world, it is by port. So
correct, yeah, difference kind of in the way that products are specified, and you know, at NAB we saw some companies kind of doing the opposite with, you know, video switches. Our belief is really that from a specification standpoint, we should really be communicating what the experience is going to be for our customer, tying an input to an output.
well, and that's important here because you have folks who design engineers who look at your products and say, terminology and words are important, so we need to make sure that they understand that when they're starting to specify, they don't need, if they need 200 gigs, they don't need actually 4 or 5 of your products for all of that. It's 50 gigs for one per port, and this, that, and the other. So
right. And then the other thing, to be fair, that Mark pointed out, which was a good, led to a good discussion between he and I, is that as you utilize different input output cards, it's a modular card cage switcher. So as you utilize different cards with different connectorization, or across the transmitters and receivers, as you tie it all together and build your system, you may have a different system performance. And so, the advantage of something like XTP II is the ability of a customer to make an investment in the infrastructure that's super long term, that will carry them way into the future, and yet value engineer for today, and have the ability to upgrade and modify that system as they go forward.
All right, and just to clarify, that is shipping currently. You announced it last month.
We announced it last month in April. Our shipping is going to be in July. We expect to deliver the product in July. Right now, the formula for Extron is usually about a 90-day window between announcement and delivery of product. Some product a little bit shorter, depending upon the I'll use the term magnitude of product. If it tends to be something big and that you're gonna design into a system, 90 days is about the right window for announcement to delivery of product.
Okay, no, I would agree with that. Yeah. All right, let's. In my full-time job, I run a company called Innovad. We are independent programmers, so I'm a little excited about this next topic. Actually, I have one of my programmers, going to become an Extron Qualified Independent Programmer. What that is well, he has to go to class, he has to take some tests, and then Innovad can say, hey, we're an Extron Qualified Independent Programmer. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is something you guys have developed. You can correct me on this. I'm going to say for about 12 to 14, 15 years, and I'm taking us all the way back to the MLCs, all the way back to the old touch panel, to the old, not touch panels, the old buttons and everything, from the world of your very first controllers, all the way through global configurator, all the way through all of that to where we sit now, which is a programming language, I guess. Is that the best way to put it?
So it's a very good description, and I would say your timing is just about right. I'd say we're pushing on 15 years of configurable control, and as you know, and you're well versed in this, Tim, the Extron approach to control has always been configuration based, and so through our global configuration software, you are through kind of a drag and drop and menu accessing and setting up and configuring your system. It's an approach that, configurable control by definition means that you're defining what a product can do and what it can't do, and drawing boundaries for the sake of efficiency and for the sake of consistency. And we've always had customers that have pushed that envelope, right? They've seen what the product can do. They've got great imaginations, and they've done more than maybe we intended with the product. And so last year, we rolled out our Global Configurator Pro software in conjunction with our Pro Series control products, so our new processors and new touch panels to support it. And GC Pro is really, we use the term advanced configuration at Extron. The reality is that it's probably closer to programming light than it is advanced configuration. It gives you the ability to set up variables and perform conditional logic in your system. So while it's done on a configuration platform, it's really in the mind of a programmer that needs to come into play in order to deploy a system at that level. What's exciting is it opens us up to really another level of system that can be done with Extron control.
Okay, so if you Extron is looking for programmers, who are you looking for? I mean, are you looking for the folks who are up and coming and coming out of computer science classes, or are you looking for folks who are certified in other languages, whether that's AMX or Crestron or Aurora or what have you?
Yeah, good question. Interestingly enough, there's some looking that we're doing to invest in and relationship these folks, and they've been coming to us. In addition, we've seen as we've launched GC Pro, we've seen a demand from our customer base for individuals to help them out with that advanced level of configuration, and their tendency is to turn to the independent guys out there that they've been working with, companies like yourself whose customer is that AV integrator. And at the same time, we have a tremendous amount of respect for these folks, these individuals. They are, they tend to be the last guys off the job site. They tend to be the guys that absolutely have to make the system work. And for where we're at today and what we've introduced, and certainly where we're going, we feel like it's a good part of our plan to develop relationships, to have a place in the Extron ecosystem for these folks to exist. It's going to help them get better support and be more connected with Extron, and certainly they ought to get all the support in the world that they need out there to get the jobs done.
All right, and to real quickly to make a fine point on this, the EQ, what the acronym is, like EQUIP, Extron Qualified Independent Programmer. Is there going to be something, or is there something in place already where folks, like my tech manager friends, can go to and say, you know what, I'm in California, I'm in Illinois, I'm in Jersey, I need an Extron independent programmer.
Yeah.
Can we find one here?
Yeah, so the landing page for it, if you just go to extron.com/equip, you'll see all the information on the program. And at this time, give us a call, and we'll be happy to refer you to somebody who's a part of the group. I foresee the same sort of support for that group that others have done out there in terms of AMX and Crestron, in terms of the lists and the referrals that take place out there.
Or if you probably could contact your local Extron rep as well, most likely. So.
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah.
All right, let's talk about 4K. Let's talk about wonderful 4K, and not to delve into it, but I've said several times, there's so many flavors, it's not even funny. There are some flavors that are not even 4K, it's 2K and 3K and all this other jazz. However, you guys released something called TrueK specification. And when we did this story on AV Week, it appeared, and this is why I said what I said, it appeared to me that you guys were trying to start a standard, which was awesome, right? And when you and I were talking back and forth about this, it was admirable. Again, this is the position I was coming from, is it appeared as if you guys were trying to do a standard industry-wide. However, that's not exactly what you were trying to do. Am I correct in saying that, at least up to this point?
Yeah, so I would say, and I listened to the podcast with interest as y'all were talking about Extron's True 4K specification and what we had rolled out, and obviously as a marketing guy, I'm looking to make sure that how did the message come across and all the rest. And you're right. I mean, first and foremost at Extron, we want to get the specifications for our products right. And we want to provide all the information that a customer needs to decide which product is the right one for his system, his application. And 4K, as I think you communicated in the podcast, and I listened to other podcasts you've done on 4K. There's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot of different individuals using terms in different ways, for different purposes, for different reasons. And you had a whole discussion about the marketing of 4K and UHD and 4K/UHD, and people changing up the terms, et cetera, et cetera. So in the midst of that, Extron very much feels like we should step forward and provide a standardized way for us, but if others want to adopt it, I think it would be a great thing. I don't think there's any downside to it, of providing all the information that a customer is going to need when evaluating a switching, a routing, a signal distribution type of product, a product that's going to pass, route, process a 4K or a UHD type of signal, I think it's very good for our customers to define product performance in a consistent way, in a clear way, and in a thorough way.
And see, that's when you and I talked about this, and I was clear, at least from my own mind. That also made sense, right? Because when you are specifying a product, and some of what I do within Innovet is we also do design engineering, and there are a few things as frustrating as getting 90% through a process and realizing that, well, no, you didn't exactly read the fine print on something. It won't do what you want it to do. And I'm not just talking about one company, it's just in general, you didn't fully read the spec. Here's the thing. This is a good step, right? And I will say that it's a good step because here's what it does. It clarifies. And yes, there are, some people will say 4, some people will say 5 different flavors of 4K. What you guys have done is said, okay, for Extron, this is what we mean when we mean 4K, right? It means the 444 chroma sampling. It means this, that, the color depth is 16-bit, and I think that is again admirable. It's a great first step. What would you guys need from the industry to make this a standard? I mean, I'm not trying to get you to do work, Casey, but it makes sense to me, right? I mean, again, for crying out loud, the CEA, the Consumer Electronics Association, has encouraged their members to market as UHD 4K.
Right.
That in and of itself is confusing the bejesus out of consumers.
Right.
So what would you guys need to take this to the next step and not introduce it as a standard, but get folks to adopt the terminology true 4K?
All right. Well, I will definitely answer that and dive into the whole standards conversation. But before I do, I would like to clarify what it is that we're saying with true 4K specification. As you mentioned, a variety of different flavors of 4K, and a variety of different rates are considered 4K or UHD. And we all know DCI 4K means one thing, and UHD means something else. What we're saying with true 4K specification is that there are 4 parameters that it's important for a customer to understand how a product's going to perform across 4 specific parameters. One is the resolution of the signal, and whether that's 4096 by 2160 or whether it's 3840 by 2160 that you're talking about, or some other resolution that you're going to identify for the signal, that's an important part of the definition. But equally important is also the frame rate, also the color sampling, and you need to define whether you're talking about 444 or 420 or 422, and also the color bit depth. And so it's the combination across those 4 factors that really tells you the data rate and the level of signal that you're saying your product can pass, process, handle, etc. So with Extron True 4K specification, what we're doing is with every product that we identify as 4K or UHD ready, we're providing as the first specification right up top. First thing you're going to see is a bolded area in the specification that defines performance across those 4 parameters and the various combinations of those 4 parameters that the product will accept, kind of the maximum capability across those 4. And so we believe that by looking at that, somebody can quickly determine, okay, this is a product that can handle a 4096 by 2160 at 30 frames refresh, and at 420 and an 8-bit color signal. Or maybe it's a product, as an XTP II, you could, that product would be spec'd as being 4096 by 2160 at 60 frames per second, 444 at up to 16-bit color depth. So, and so by conveying that, the customer then is left with an understanding of, okay, this is the level of performance that they are talking about that this product can handle, rather than just looking at the 4K logo and saying, okay, this is a quote unquote 4K product, because that honestly just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean a consistent thing across our industry, across our customer base.
But then in real quickly, but if you have the true 4K logo, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, if you guys have put the true 4K specification logo on a product, that means it can do up to the the full 4096.
No, the true 4K specification logo will be on every product page, and if you click that logo, you instantly get the specification of the
okay. All right.
And if you just go to the product spec page, you'll see that's the first spec you'll see will be the true 4K specification. So it's a methodology for specifying product performance.
Okay.
Right. And we're standardizing on it. Every product that is 4K capable and UHD capable is going to have that spec and have its performance defined in accordance with that spec. Now you mentioned standards. We're looking at it like it's a leadership position that we're taking. I think it's a good position for us. For it to be a standard, it's got to be driven by the customers. The customers have got to demand it. If the customers are going to the manufacturers and saying, this is what we've got to have, the designers are saying, this is what I've got to have, it'll be there. If they don't, it won't. It's kind of, it kind of works that way.
Well, it does. Let's clarify that real quickly. When you say the customers demand it, who are you talking about? Because again, the true end user. Let's take the board, the chairman of the board and the professors. Let's take that back a little bit, and let's talk about their technology managers. So those are some of our end users, or is it the people who are designing these systems, right? The people who are specifying these systems, who are getting it into the scopes of work. Is that who you need to target here, or I guess we as an industry need to target?
Well, at Extron, that's always been our belief that the customer is the system designer. That's always been and all the influencers, of course, but the system designer is the person that is charged with picking the right product, picking the solution. That goes back to you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. Extron's place in the market and the types of products that we build. We see ourselves as the manufacturer of those glue products, and it's it's the systems designer that's putting it all together and delivering that system, that entire solution to the customer. So that's who we're always talking about as the customer, and so maybe that's why we feel like it's this level of detail that we need to provide, because we're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of those individuals, and what do they need to see, what do they need to know in order to make the right decision about what product is going to go into their system.
Yeah, and that's always a difficult thing as a designer, because there are some systems that you start working on. I don't know, today's May of 2015. You may not see the finished product until 2 years from now, 20, 24 months. And so you start, dealing. That's why so many designers do live on that bleeding edge,
right?
Because they try to stay as forward thinking as possible. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Future proofing your system is a challenge, and technology is moving fast. So yeah, it's those are decisions that need to be made about what level of investment are you making in that infrastructure. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but I think having a clear understanding of that performance is an important factor there, and it's evolving, right? I mean, we've kind of and I think that when you look at the industry, I would say that there's a when people say 4K, it's one thing. There's a certain level of knowledge about 4K 30 or 4K 60, but I don't see a whole lot of definition regarding performance for chroma sampling and color bit depth and a real consistent approach there. So I don't think it would hurt for manufacturers to all kind of rally toward this is the way to spec products. I mean, if you remember, going back to the analog days, we all had bandwidth, right? And that was the defining characteristic. But bandwidth in reference to a certain point of loss. So in our case, we all kind of settled around 3 dB down being the point of reference for bandwidth on a product, right? And so that just kind of got there between other manufacturers recognizing the need and customers demanding it.
Yeah, if you want to have some fun, go to a box store and ask the person working the TV counter what the color depth is.
There's job security.
Exactly. All right. A couple years ago, I guess about 3 years ago now, Extron stepped away from something, and it was interesting. Uh, we're running up about 30 days outside of Infocom. You guys won't be there, and you haven't been there for a few years. Um, I've said several times that I said I thought it was a mistake. Just for the record, still do. But we're going to talk about a little bit, walk through that. Um, First, the reasoning, and it was a good reasoning. I'm not gonna, it's not my business, it's not my company. The reason at the time that Mr. Edwards gave was to focus on your regional training centers, which you've built several since then. So the first question is how is that process going? How is that program going of getting your regional centers up and running?
Yeah, no, we're very happy with where we're at. We've almost doubled the number of regional training centers that we have worldwide. It's in fact, we just announced offices in Stockholm and Jerusalem. I was really hoping to be able to say, Toronto, and have our Canadian office, and honestly, has nothing to do with the beating that Calgary gave the Ducks last last night, 19-second. Pulling that out at the finish, but no, we're doing very well with that. This year we will train over 10,000 people at Extron institutes, at Extron training events worldwide. So training's always been a huge focus for Extron. It's always been the way that we have approached our connection with our customers, and the way in which we interact with them. You mentioned Infocom, and honestly, the decision, it's not a position against Infocom. We still support Infocom in a tremendous.
Well, your training still does RUs. I mean, that's the thing is you can't really say that you don't when your training still gives people renewal units for the CTS.
Absolutely, we still our instructors still teach at the Infocom Academy, and they always will, as long as they're welcome and invited to be there. They'll absolutely be there. Frankly, we would still teach at Infocom if we could. And Infocom's a great event. We're not taking a position against the show or against ISE for that matter. They're good events. They're worthwhile events. Just for Extron, it was the right position and decision to reorient those resources into what we felt was activity that was more beneficial to us, beneficial to the customers over the long term.
Well, and let's not to get too silly here, but it's expensive to do a show. I mean,
no question. No question
about that, and you know better than I, because we have a tiny little itty bitty booth, and you guys had a big thing. Well, to that point, do you think that you'll ever do it again? Do you think you guys will ever do Infocom or ISE for that matter?
Yeah, well, I would never say never. Okay, as you know, we chatted a little bit before the podcast, and Andrew, and you have a sense of the type of individual that he is, and his leadership style is certainly that Extron's going to make business-minded decisions, and we're going to always look to evaluate what we need to do and how we need to do it. I can tell you that our feeling is that there's a tremendous benefit that we've received in reorganizing the effort and the resources into, as I mentioned, the training. But I'll also tell you that one of the things that has really changed at Extron is the focus on, the amount of effort that goes into an event like Infocom, especially the way that Extron was doing it, doing a 10,000 square foot booth, and just a massive number of people at the show, and those sorts of things. Also going along with that is a lot of development of prototypes and product demos for products and technology that you're going to introduce, and the tendency becomes to introduce all of that, or as much as you can, at one point in the year. And when you do that, you end up making decisions about introducing products that you don't really have confidence that are going to be appearing in the next 3 months. You might be talking about 6 months or 9 months or even a year down the road that you're trying to make a decision about. Do you do it? Do you don't do it? Do you show it? Do you not show it? For us, taking those engineering resources and putting that into the development of actual product instead of into prototypes and demonstration product has been huge for us. I mean, you look at the number of products that we introduce, that has certainly increased by a dramatic fashion at Extron. Look at all the digital solutions that we have. Look at all of the 4K UHD product that we've brought to market and are bringing to market. That's been a major benefit for us. And I also think for the market in terms of introducing and delivering those products on a schedule based on when the products are ready and when the market's ready for them, that's healthy.
I will. Here's the thing. I will give you guys props for that, because every year, and I will say nearly every year, as we do our wrap-up show at Infocom, there is always a fun little game we play, and that is what is vaporware and what is not. You know, right. What is on the show floor that you will never ever see in a real live environment, and it's a good point. It really is. So.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I think that your tendency is that you're going to see the product. It's just a question of when. Right?
Oh, not always. No, not always.
Well, okay.
I'll give you a list. I'll email you a list.
Okay. Well, I won't challenge you on that, but I do feel like for us it's been a very healthy thing for us to get to where we've got that 90-day window in terms of introducing product, and we'll push the envelope sometimes depending upon the product and the technology that we're talking about. There's always a desire to get out there and to be first, but I can tell you at Extron our philosophy very much is that you deliver the product when it's ready. And you don't go out there and make unwilling beta testers of your customers. And that's kind of the decision you end up stuck in, is that you're either going to deliver the product not quite there and then promise to update the firmware or whatever, or you're going to hold back and not have the product and then frustrate your customers in that fashion. So
okay, so let's talk through that for a second, because one of the things that, this is my perception. Okay, so you understand where it's coming from. There was a perception for a little bit, for a few years there, where it almost felt like you guys were trying to get things perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And so I understand the point of view where you're trying not to make beta testers, mm-hmm. but you also have a contingency of rabid Extron fans who, they're needing digital stuff, and they, this, that, and the other, and you guys are almost there, and you this, that, and the other. Where is the line there for you guys between getting stuff out there and not making your clients and your customers beta testers, but still getting the product out into the market?
That's a good question. And I'm going to say I think it's worked well for us over the long term to take the approach that the product's got to be right, and it has to deliver on what we've promised, what we've specified the product to be. Okay. That I think is understood in terms of being characteristic of Extron. And now, should we push the envelope there to some degree? The debates we have internally with the company and otherwise, but again, I think over the long term that's worked out well for us, and I don't see us at this point moving into a different mode with that. I can tell you that we recognize that there was a period of time, and there were some years there where we were behind on product, and we were behind on getting product out. We're certainly not going to say that wasn't the case, but what we did in our approach there was to focus on engineering, focus on the product development side of the company and the engineering side of the company, and bringing in the resources necessary to get the products out. And so, I would say you look at where we stand today, and you look at what we're delivering products today. I mean, you look at our fiber line. I think we've got an industry-leading line of fiber products. You look at XTP II. And what we brought to market there, that's absolutely market-leading technology. You look at control. You have to look at that in light of Extron coming from the configurable standard approach and having a base of customers there that we're supporting. But over time, we're going to gradually open up more and more capability. in terms of control. Major announcements coming for us in terms of what you can do with Extron products in terms of control, and the control products line. And I'll just say this: you can't develop a configurable style of control. You certainly can't do it to the level that we're doing it without having programming exist underneath, under the hood, right? I mean, you know that, I'm sure, Tim, that the configuration, the configuration software really is what's writing the code for you on that processor. So it's going to be interesting days ahead. I like what I see when I look at we always look at a 5-year horizon here at Extron. That's kind of our focus for for our master plan. And when I look at what we've got in all the different core categories out there and what's coming, it's exciting times for Extron.
Okay. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Absolutely. All right. As we wrap up here, a couple of kind of esoteric, just kind of over 30,000-foot view
Yeah, sure.
questions. What do you think that Extron's biggest competitive advantages over their competitors? And I don't, you can name the competitor, or just kind of just in general the different people that kind of live in the same space that you do.
Yeah, no, I think when you look at Extron, everybody in our industry understands the who's who out there, and it's never been our way to try to tear down. And we are who we are, and so to answer your question, I think products. Our focus at Extron is building the right products and getting the products right, building them with the highest quality, and then supporting the heck out of the products. That's just kind of what it's all about for us. It's one of the things I think we could do a better job at in terms of communicating is the level of engineering that takes place here at Extron. When you look at Extron, there's a huge focus on Extron on developing our own IP, and across our core product lines, that's the way we do it. Whether it's scaling, whether it's routing, whether it's the control products, anywhere across our line, even look at our audio line, our DSP. That's technology that we developed at Extron. Yeah. And the reason for that is that gives us the ability to support those products at a deep level. I mean, at a level that really other manufacturers can't. And I would venture to say that in today's age, where you're talking about digital signals and putting things on the network, and it's not just about passing signals anymore. It's about products communicating and handshaking and data rates, and so product compatibility is a real issue out there, and the manufacturer that can step up and address an issue that a customer is having out there in the field is a manufacturer that's in the position to support their customers, and Extron's in a position to support, I think, beyond anybody else in terms of the level that we can go to solve problems for customers and address things and develop technology. So I think that's a major advantage for us. And I think, ultimately we are the support company. We're the company you can turn to and get help, get support. Major investment we've made over the last few years in that too, in terms of getting the field resources in place out there. All the people we have out there in the field, they're engineers, they're technically minded people. That's their reason for being there.
Absolutely. Where's a couple of places you think that maybe you guys could do things better, or maybe more efficiently?
Good question. Well, I will speak personally. I think from a marketing standpoint, there's a huge challenge. With all the products we're introducing, we tend to be fairly good, I think, at communicating on product. What we don't tend to do very well is communicate about what's happening at Extron or what's going on kind of behind the scenes at the company. And I think that matters. I think there's a desire that customers have to understand and know a company and understand where they're going, where they see the market going, where they see the industry going. I think we could do a better job at that. I think forums like this are a good forum for that. I think that's a place where we could improve our communication.
I think forums like this are awesome. So that's just completely self-serving. I'll admit that. All right. As last question here, you mentioned your guys' 5-year horizon. What's it look like? I mean, I'm not asking you to reveal company secrets, and I didn't sign an NDA. So, so what do you guys have? What do you guys have coming up down the pipeline? What's on your 5-year horizon there?
Interesting. So, I kind of touched on that a little bit, I think, but I'll go I probably can't go very far, but I'll go as far as I can here. I think that you know, huge focus on what's core to Extron. I think that was part of our self-evaluation that we went through over the last, you know, I mentioned, 3-4 years ago, in terms of getting the products out, getting the solutions out that the customers were expecting from Extron. You know, look at what's core to Extron: switching, routing, signal processing. That's an absolutely core product line, product group from Extron. And when you look at the methodology, the flavor toward signal routing distribution, Extron's going to be there in every category, in every way that occurs within the professional AV marketplace. So whether that's wireless, whether that is, you mentioned copper, and kind of alluded to HD-based T type of transmission, fiber, certainly a strong category for Extron. Streaming, we introduced a streaming recording product this year, the SMP 351, fantastic product for us. I mean, that's one we're extremely proud of, and has done very, very well out of the gate. So in those core categories, and then and I mentioned earlier, we consider control a core category at Extron. May not have thought about it that way, and certainly coming from the perspective of a programmer, and Extron being having the configurable style. Control there's a lot of depth that Extron has in terms of our control products, and there's a lot of power and capability of those products. And as we open that up and expose that, I think that's going to become a huge part of where Extron sits out there.
Very good. We'll end it with that, Mr. Casey Hall, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Extron Electronics. Thank you so much, sir. Where, if they're interested in getting a hold of you or finding more about Extron, how do they do that?
You can certainly just drop me a line here at Extron. You can call on the main number, and certainly my email, casey@extron.com. Pretty easy to remember there.
All right, and now Extron.com is the website, Casey.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody, you got feedback, certainly we'd love to get it. So give us a call, let us know what you think, let us know what you need us doing for you.
All right, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. My name is Tim Albright. I have been your host. Thank you so much for watching and listening.